a nuclear weapon is about to hit the Senate. We all will die. Everyone in an 8-kilometer radius will also die. A cloud of acid rain and radiation will loom over a radius of 400 kilometers, and everyone in that radius will have to stay indoors for 2 months, and agriculture in this radius will die. This might seem improbable, but are you willing to take the risk? This is what our first argument is about, so let's get right into that argument, being that it is too great of a hazard to even have nuclear weapons. We read 2 letters here, so let's go right to the first one. Being someone in the future would choose to use nuclear weapons, we have 2 reasons to believe that is true. And the first one is that in the nations that are in the possession of nuclear weapons, there's a lot of power to the populace, as it so happens to be in France, Pakistan, India, or United States, or Russia. Now, what these populists are is that they use your fear, they use your emotions to get as many votes as possible. They are extremists, and they often are irrational, and again, they use these emotions. So what this leads to is that they are more prone to using nuclear weapons in some scenarios, because they're irrational. They often don't think as rational as a different politician would, but also they are extremists, and a militarist extremist would probably do something like using a nuclear weapon. So we are showing you there's a way bigger chance of someone using nuclear weapons. The second reason we believe that is true is the so-called rule of large numbers, where we have had nuclear weapons for about 60 years, and 2 times it almost has happened that they would be used. I'm talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the India-Pakistan border skirmishes. Now, the point at which it almost happens twice in 60 years, and we are going to have nuclear weapons for another hundreds, not thousands of years, there is a mathematical 100% chance that in the future there simply has to be a person that will elect to use nuclear weapons. It is simply mathematically impossible to say this is not true. What eventually would be the consequences of such usage? Even if only one nation, the mentioned one, was to use nuclear weapons, it would be hugely devastating because of their devastating power. But more so, we have a reason to believe that if one of these militarist populists was to use nuclear weapons, there would be a strike back from other nations, because it is in their protocols, because it is in their best incentive to do that. The second layer of this risk argument is terrorist attacks. We believe that when terrorists would get their hands on nuclear weapons, which we will explain is possible, might have even happened already, it would be a huge problem. Why is it that they can get them? Why is it that they might already have it? It is confirmed that there are working nuclear warheads on the black market with nuclear weapons. Even more so, when a nuke magnate in Bulgaria had a few meetings with terrorist mastermind Osama bin Laden, and he's never confirmed, neither denied, that he sold him warheads. So what might be happening right now is that somewhere out there already are terrorists in the possession of nuclear warheads, but even if they were not, we tell you that they likely are about to have them in the future, again applying this rule of numbers mentioned a few moments earlier. Second thing to answer with these terrorist attacks is that why can they then happen when the services stop them, etc. We tell you some terrorist attacks are just unpreventable. While a lot are prevented by things like Interpol and CIA, a lot of them are not. Like was the 9/11, like was the Paris attacks in 2015, like was the Brussels attack in 2016, and many more in the few recent years. And therefore, that is why we believe that there are 2 of risk to take. Second argument is about rogue nations. Firstly, what are these rogue nations? Those are nations that use nuclear weapons to legitimize their internal oppression, if not genocide. We show you right now there is one of these, and there is North Korea, but there are probably 3 that are planning on making more nuclear weapons. That is Libya, Iran, and Iraq, the United Nations say. This argument will be done in a comparative between a world with nuclear weapons, meaning the opposition world, and a world without them, being the other world. But what are we really comparing here? On their side of the house, we are comparing economical sanctions, because nothing else is possible to force the trade rogue nations to our conditions, because an invasion will lead to a nuclear warfare and many other problems such as power struggle, so it is simply not an option. Secondly, smart powers are not working in a world with nuclear weapons, because rogue nations are simply not scared of you. Whereas the comparative on our side of the house is the mentioned smart powers. Because, to be honest, I think we can all agree that it would be the United States doing these things, the United States being the actor to forge recognitions to our conditions, and they have been described as the heaviest smart power user in the world, so that's where I believe they would be. So what's the comparative? Economic sanctions on their server house bring 2 harms, 0 benefits. So what are these harms? Firstly, only people suffer, because when there is an economic sanction on a country, they have way less money because they can reallocate the money from services and from people to military to propaganda, and then what this leads to is that people suffer from famines and from higher oversee from their oppressive government. The second harm is that this gives propaganda because the government can blame the West for the mentioned suffering of people, so it eventually even strengthens the regime. 2 harms, 0 benefits. On our server house, smart powers have 2 benefits, no harms. We think they eventually weaken the propaganda as you show people tangible evidence their government is lying. You show them the truth and it starts to make sense to them. You even show them documentation of their government lying. There might be some rebels because of this, and when you see there are rebels, you probably think the government isn't perfect. When there are some people who believe they have a reason to be rebels. Secondly, we tell you, because of the mentioned reasons, smart powers are more likely to reach their goal, to reach success, because we target people in these rogue nations, and people are the strength as well as the weakness of oppressive regimes. For all of these reasons, vote for your affirmative side.
So, firstly, we are clear. Do we all agree that nuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction?
Yes, we are.
And what would be somebody's reason to use a weapon of mass destruction?
Whereas we have said, there isn't a very legitimate reason to do. When you think of it, the problem is that people and these populists, as we have explained, are irrational. So being rational, there likely isn't an exact reason, but when you are rational, you would do it. That was the mechanism behind it.
Okay, so you think that even if there were irrational people leading like these world superpowers, they can themselves and easily detonate these nuclear weapons?
Well, in a lot of these countries, just to say the least, the United States and some of the European, the president is in charge of this nuclear briefcase, so-called. So we believe that if an irrational, extremist, militarist populist would get to this post, to have this power, we believe, yes, they definitely could.
So you just believe that president has this power, right?
No, we do know that the president has this power.
Okay, so today, which all countries own nuclear weapons?
Well, it is France, United Kingdom, United States, Pakistan, India, North Korea, China, Russia, and Israel.
Basically, could we agree that these are, at least from the geopolitical point of view, the most important countries in the world?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Why?
Like, for example, North Korea and Israel are definitely not. Pakistan is likely not too. And I think India, while they might be important, I don't.
But I mean, generally, like these countries all together are possessing world power, right? Like most of the world power.
Well, they hold most of the world's economy and a big portion of the world's population.
Yeah. So why is anybody in this room supposed to believe that any country such this would have a motivation to risk destroying itself?
Well, we believe they wouldn't have the motivation to do that because again, you assume that this is rational. Rationally, you have literally 0 reasons to do that, or so I believe. But the people are not always rational. People are extremists. People are not rational. People not always make the brightest decisions.
Okay, and my last question: how are we supposed to believe that mathematically there is 100% chance that someone will detonate nuclear weapons?
Because in the last 60 years it almost has happened twice. So we believe that given there's thousands of years of the future existence of nuclear weapons, simply there is a 100% mathematical chance that this will happen, that someone will use them.
Okay, thank you very much.
What we heard from the affirmatives is that every populist has a red button on this desk that he is willing to press at any time. Let's look at why this is false, why their terrorist argument is false, and then I'm going to bring you our own constructed on how nuclear weapons actually prevented a lot of huge wars. So firstly, what we heard is that the populists rule in the world, and therefore they will fire nuclear weapons. And we don't see why they would do this, right? If you are a populist, you care about what people think. And we don't really think that anyone in the world wants to fire a nuclear weapon, because that would be a nuclear war, and even the most stupid people and most uneducated people don't want a nuclear war, right? So we don't see why Trump supporters would want to start a nuclear war. So they don't have a reason to fire it. But even if they had, what we need to realize is that basically the red button doesn't exist. The red button on Trump's desk is actually to bring him Coca-Cola, right? The red button that he has on his desk that tells his assistant to bring him Coca-Cola. It doesn't fire nuclear weapons. How nuclear weapons are fired is that the order needs to go through several people. Each and every single one of them can prevent the attack if they think that it's illogical or it would be destructive for the country. And we can see this on the examples they brought us. In Cubanian crisis, people prevented this because they were rational. Even if 3 of the 4 people are irrational, the one will always be rational, because he will know that firing a nuclear weapon will start basically a nuclear holocaust, that the whole earth would be damaged, and nobody is willing to take this chance. And furthermore, if it didn't happen until today, it most likely will not in the future, because the security is getting way better and better. If you take a look at nuclear weapons 30 years ago and now, the security is enormous in status quo, and it's getting better and better. So there is no way the nuclear weapon would actually be fired. That's what we are telling you, and more on this in our constructors. Secondly, terrorists. Terrorists can't acquire nuclear weapons because the development is simply too expensive, too slow. And if, let's say, Islamic State wanted to develop a nuclear weapon, they would need to save up their money for decades and have this expertise, which they simply do not have. So it is impossible for them to develop it. And nobody would give them nuclear weapons. Let's talk about Pakistan, for example, where when the United States thought that nukes in Pakistan were insecure, they sent their own people to Pakistan to actually take care of the security of nuclear weapons, to prevent Pakistan from giving it to terrorists or something. So no, we don't really see a reason why any country would actually give nuclear weapons to terrorists. So they can't acquire the nuclear weapons, and they can't even steal it like they say to us. Because as we are telling you, they are extremely safe, and with each and every single day, the nuclear weapons are getting safer and safer. For example, in the USA, all the technology is stored on floppy disks. From floppy disks, just not to be able to get hacked through internet or something, right? So they can't really steal the weapons. And even if terrorists had the weapons, they wouldn't have incentive to use them, because terrorists want to get some territory, they want to get sovereignty or something. And if they use nuclear weapons, the other states would simply destroy them. Let's take a look at 9/11. After 9/11, basically the whole world told themselves that they needed to destroy the terrorists. What would happen if they used way more powerful weapons? It would be impossible to imagine. And lastly, they talked about how we have sanctions only on our side, but nothing really changes in these people. Kim Jong-un still doesn't care about his own people, just as he didn't care before the development of nuclear weapons. And furthermore, it's the international society that pushes these states to get rid of the nuclear weapons, because we have not doing it yet. But thanks to the international community, states like South Africa, Iran, Ukraine, or Belarus, all of these got rid of their nuclear weapons because of the extreme pressure from the international community. So nothing changes for these people, and furthermore, these countries don't really have the international community pushes them to forget their weapons. So now let's get to our constructive, which is peace. Why do states actually start a war? They do it to get some benefits, to get better security or resources, but there is not even a Pyrrhic victory in nuclear war, and no one can be the winner, because you would totally destroy the other state in nuclear war, and furthermore, the other state would destroy you. So you basically get the whole state destroyed and your own state destroyed, right? Well, we can see this also on stability paradox. The tension between USA and the Soviet Russia was simply huge during the Cold War, and still they didn't fight. Previously, wars were started because of trivialities. For example, the Franco-Prussian War was started because of an insulting letter. An insulting letter, right? But we had USA and Soviet Union literally arming against each other, yet still not fighting. The same is with India and Pakistan. They had wars before they had nuclear weapons. In 1947, for example, 500,000 up to 1 million people died in this war. But after both of them developed nuclear weapons, they had just tiny border conflicts. And in the border conflict in 1999, only under 1,000 people died, and the international community pushed them to stop the war because they were afraid of the nuclear weapons, right? So what we get here, why we go to this argument? Their burden of proof is to show that it brought more harms than goods. But we have proven to you that the harms basically do not exist, because anyone doesn't have really a motivation or a chance to fight nuclear weapons, and the goods that we brought you prevented a war in which tens of millions of people will die. Basically nothing they bring to you in this debate furthermore really matters, because this World War III prevention is basically it. So for all these reasons, please vote negatives.
Okay, so firstly, what is the terrorist incentive?
Well, terrorist incentive, as we have told you, is to gain something. Terrorists are not people that are willing to kill millions of people just because they don't like them. Even the Islamic State. Why did the Islamic State fall? Because they wanted to have their own Islamic State, like the name, like the name tells us, right? So, and if Islamic State attacked USA, let's say, the USA would have a huge counterattack, and Islamic State would really wouldn't gain anything.
Okay, so by your logic, the 9/11 was because they wanted to conquer America, or what?
Well, what you need to imagine is 9/11 is not really comparable, because a few thousand people died in 9/11, and if we take a look at like what would happen in
but if you have radicalized people who just fight against West, and they are not willing to take the few million deaths because they are fighting for that, because they are radicalized, they want to do that.
Well, we don't see what they would gain by that. Nobody just wants to eliminate millions of people just because it's fun or something.
Yes,
it's not
why they wanted to eliminate a few thousand people?
Well, to show the West that they are the power they need to counter with. But if they had a nuclear attack on the United States, it would be something totally different. Because it would be way more dangerous, and the United States and basically all the world would come up against the Islamic State and destroy him in like 1 minute or so.
Okay, in 44 years in Cold War, there was 21 nuclear threats. Since March, this year, there was 3 of them. Doesn't that mean that there is some rise of populism or something like that?
Well, what you tell us, basically, the bigger number you say, the better our side is, because you are telling us that there were dozens of nuclear threats, yet none of them really happened. So what you have here is dozens of nuclear threats, but none of it actually caused any harm. So
yes.
It's kind of on our side, don't you?
No, I don't, because don't you believe that if there is like higher amount of these threats, doesn't that mean that one time it can get to a moment when Modi needs to gain like more power because he is actually trying to make as much fear in people as possible?
What we would like to hear from you is to hear right more threats is actually whether it's United States or North Korea or anything. But even if this all was true, what we were telling you was that there is a huge number of people involved in the process, and if single person decides that it's a bad move, as it happened like dozens of times before, nothing actually happens.
Okay, is that okay that in a time of Cold War there was like really big amount of proxy warfare where many hundreds of thousands?
Well, what you need to imagine, is that those wars would still exist, because what happened in Vietnam, for example, is that people thought whether they want to have a capitalistic or communist country. And the same thing would happen even without nuclear weapons. So this is not exclusive to your side, and this is on both sides of the house.
The leader of opposition says we have peace, yet 400,000 people have been killed in Syria through an American and Russian proxy war. 11,000 were butchered in South Sudan through a proxy war between the United States and China, and 54,246 innocent individuals who were sent to fight via the draft were killed in Korea. They say we have peace, but we live in a wasteland. I'll be having 4 points of extraneous rebuttal. First, having a look at the point on mutually assured destruction and why this isn't inherent to nuclear weapons and why this isn't historically true. First, we tell you this is not inherent to nuclear weapons because, first of all, we have had a massive wave of democratization where the incentives of people are actually accounted for through relatively accountable and transparent governments. That is to say, war has always been a perennial reality and has always been here. But at that point, when individuals' opinions are actually taken into account and they do not consent to war, it is actually taken as such. Thus, when people do not consent to it, it does not happen. Second, we have a huge amount of economic interdependence between states currently. Like, for example, we have free trade agreements like NAFTA and the TTIP. We have a customs union and a monetary union in the European Union. Or we have the Belt and Road Initiative that connects 72 countries throughout the world currently and is the $8 trillion project. This shows that countries have instrumental incentives to not go into war because it would have massive financial repercussions upon them for the sheer fact that they lose trade deals for massive political capital as a result of that. And thus we tell you that this would happen irrespective of nuclear weapons being here or not. Third, we tell you there is a large amount of multilateralism and global order through international governmental agencies that not only embody international law and reinforce it through major conventions, but second of all, also do maintain major political acts that keep these countries together and do not give them incentive to attack each other because they help each other on a political basis. Now, but even if this was not true, let me show you why mutually assured destruction simply does not work. So the theory is actually called rational mutual assured destruction. Therefore, by this, it is hinged on the fact that the actors that wield nuclear weapons are actually rational individuals. What we must note that in the past month, we had 3 threats of the usage of nuclear weapons. From Modi to Khan saying that he will unleash the mother of all nuclear bombs. From Netanyahu moving all his nuclear weapons so they're directed at the capitals of his Arab neighbors, right? Or activating the Iron Dome. This clearly shows that there is a preparation for a nuclear war, or at least that these individuals are bolstering their nuclear arsenals. This shows that the tide of populism through which then these populists try to engender massive fear among their population and through having threats of militant national security are a reason for them to start. And they say, no, they are accountable to the people here. But note, at the point at which when the people believe that national security is the largest issue and that military spendings globally should be the largest they have ever been, they do consent to this, and therefore the accountability point does not stand here. Now let's have a look why historically this is just not true. We have a look at the War of the Falklands, where the British sent a nuclear submarine. We see the invasion of Iraq, where it was presumed that Hussein did have weapons of mass destruction. Yet in both instances, a war did ensue. That is to say, if we did have 2 larger countries that need to compare their egos a little bit more than Argentina and Great Britain, we might possibly have a nuclear war in this instance. Or for example, in the Second World War, Japan did not capitulate because of the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but simply because there were 100,000 Soviet soldiers on their border about to invade mainland Japan, right? Therefore we see that there were far larger reasons as to why it should not do this. But even if everything we just told you is not true, we tell you this is outweighed by the sheer immense amount of proxy wars we have. They say it is not exclusive, but no. Because if we assume that they're saying something truthful here, that they are then scared to go into war, then proxy wars become the most probable mean of a war in their side of the house. This means that they will subsidize local militias in Central Africa in order to satisfy their political incentives, right? This means that the United States and Russia, or before the Soviet Union, would take out their political issues in Vietnam, or Syria, or Sudan, or Korea. The sheer fact that we have these nuclear weapons and that there might be this principle of deterrence means there's a far larger probability of having proxy wars. Now let's talk about terrorists. Very simple here. Daesh made last year $2 billion a week. This means that they had the largest GDP in the region compared to all the other nations in the Middle East. What this shows is that they have the financial capitals to do so. But more so, terrorists very often have vast networks in the black market. That is to say, they are capable of contacting individuals who do have access to this. Note that we have a Bulgarian mafia called Ivanov, who did deal nuclear weapons to Osama bin Laden, right? Or at least it is presumed to do so. At that point, when these individuals do get hand, and even if it was improbable, we tell you this is a massive risk. Because it takes one individual to get on a plane with a little button, because the smallest nuclear weapon we have is a little button, by the way, to kill hundreds of thousands of people. If a nuclear weapon was to go off in New York City, 200,000 people would die in 5 minutes. 500,000 people would die because of the nuclear fallout. This is a massive issue. Second, they say this is not in their incentive. Very simply, their incentive is to wage jihad on the white imperialists that took away their dignity, that killed so many people in the Middle Eastern conflicts. Therefore, they do not care about any self-preservation. They rather care about destruction. This also works for rogue nations. Because of this, vote government.
Okay, thank you for your speech. Do you know how many people died in World War II?
Wow.
Okay, and how many people died in France?
Well, just from the three that I know, it's over 1.5 million. And by the way, the World War II was not ended by nuclear bombs, but rather the Russians almost invading Japan.
Okay, according to mutual assured destruction, you said that it doesn't work because of international trade deals. Like, were there these trade deals during the Cold War, for example?
Well, I'd say we live in a far more globalized world than we did during the Cold War. We have far greater economic projects. We have multiple free trade agreements.
Okay, but let's say at the Cold War, did Soviet Russia and the United States had like international trade deals during the Cold War to prevent that from like World War III or something?
Well, honestly, I'm not exactly sure if they didn't have any economic interconnectedness, but surely what this means now, for at least the past 30 years we have, or 20 years we have had notable economic projects, and we will in the future, and that's also the really important here, that the threat does not become that palpable in the future, surely because we have, for example, the Belt and Road Initiative that connects over half of the world.
Okay, you said that there were 3 threats of nuclear attacks this year, so why didn't they become nuclear wars?
Actually, in the past month. I don't think nuclear weapons are something people just want to press the button and let go, right? I think we can all agree on that. But at that point, when you do, for example, when Putin said, if Trump was to allocate more soldiers into NATO bases in Europe, he will direct nuclear missiles at the USA and at Germany. At that point, when you do have a highly tense atmosphere and you have a lot of military pressure coming from 2 major rivals here, we tell you it is probable. We're not telling you it is a certainty, but the sheer destructiveness of nuclear weapons is enough to say.
But what would Russia get from nuking the United States if they knew that the United States would like immediately nuke them back?
Ladies and gentlemen, the important thing here is that they're presuming everyone's rational and everyone's really, really smart in this world. They're neglecting that we have people like Trump, who says that national security is a major issue because Mexicans are building houses, right? At that point, when you have individuals who are xenophobic, racist, and say that military spendings have to be the largest ever, when they genuinely do not have to, then we tell you that there is a probability that they will not be rational. Note, politicians and populists by nature very often are demagogues. They use them.
And the 3 generals that Trump has, that each and every single one of them can prevent him from firing a nuclear weapon, they are not rational.
Okay, let's think about this. Donald Trump chooses his cabinet, right? And Donald Trump fired a lot of his cabinet as well, including those 3 people being his chief of staff, the admiral and the major general of the U.S. Army, who, by the way, have these codes. And they're all his very, very good friends. I think the same goes for the Kremlin. I think the same goes for Israel.
The last question to terrorists. You said that terrorists can acquire nuclear weapons easily. Then why didn't they use it like never?
What we're telling you, there is a probability that it will happen in the future. Terrorist organizations are simply getting stronger, they are making more money, and they are becoming more innovative and inventive.
At that point, when they're better at doing what they can do, we say it is a risk that we should oppose. We're not saying it's a certainty. Please make that clear. Thank you.
Proposition side is trying to persuade us that even the most stupid person on the planet Earth doesn't understand that in nuclear war, everyone he knows would die. We think that it's totally not true, and we totally cannot agree with them. Okay, so in your second speech, we had a reaction to our argument and rehabilitation of your second point in your first argument. So first, I think that you probably agree that we are true in your second argument and in the first half of your first argument, and we probably won this argument. So I'm going to focus on these two rebuttals from your side. Okay, so first the terrorists. You again said that terrorists are doing the terror just because to kill so many people and be happy with it. It's not simply true. Islamist State wants to have a caliphate in the Middle East. The same was with the 9/11 attack. Just because they wanted to threat United States that they wanted them to leave the Middle East. And again, we know what happened after 9/11. Everyone, all NATO states, attacked those terrorists, and they didn't have any chance. They are reasonable because they are fighting for something. Mainly these things like independence and territory. And well, they are enough reasonable to understand that if they do something like nuclear attack to some country, everyone on the whole world will attack them because no one would agree them, even their own people. So there is no really reason to do that. You said that they are on black market, so many nuclear weapons, but we don't think it's really true. We would like to hear some resources from you. Where did you get the idea that just some country is selling the most destructive weapon on the world to some terrorists somewhere? Because we think that totally is not true. Everyone understands how dangerous it is, and that's why we have international organizations to make nuclear weapons safe. Every country on the world is making their nuclear weapons safer and safer, and we think it's totally enough to be safe against terrorists. And also, maybe the biggest point in this debate, the argument, is about mutual destruction. We think, as we said, that those proxy wars you were talking about would be, under your case also, without nuclear weapons. Because great powers are still, with nuclear weapons or without nuclear weapons, trying to spread their influence on the world. And we have to understand that those countries were decolonized, and after that they started some war, mainly communists versus capitalists. And they started those wars, and maybe then United States and Soviet Russia helped them to fight against each other. The same happened right now in Syria. People revolted against Assad because they didn't want him to be a dictator. And after that, United States came there and helped them. It was not just because United States said someone, yeah, you should war, you should revolt against your dictator, so they started. This is simply not true, and these wars would happen the same way under your case, even if there was some war between the United States and Soviet Russia, because they would still want it to have more power over the world. Also, you said that just because the huge international trade, there wouldn't be no war. The same idea was before the First World War. Everyone thought after the Industrial Revolution that everyone is trading with everyone, and it's not beneficial to have a war. And we know what happened. Just because one person was assassinated, then they started a 4-year war where maybe 20 million people died. And there was the same international trade, and we think that the same international trade is not working enough, because you know if you have some gain from your war, but you cannot have any benefits from war when there are nuclear weapons, because everyone, even the most stupid politician, understands that if there is no one to vote him, there is no reason for him to start a nuclear war. Also, you said that these people have to be intelligent to understand the same thing we are talking about, but you don't have to have an IQ 20 to understand that you shouldn't attack anyone with nuclear weapons because he would attack you back and you would die. It's very simple. And that's why this is working. The mutual threat of destruction is working, and we know it. Because there was no big war for 70 years in our history. And it was from the time when we had nuclear weapons. Before that, we had wars and wars against great powers again and again. And now we have relative peace. Not many people died. In Second World War died more than 50 million people. And we think that we saved even more people. And we have the value of human life on our side. Because we are saving people by nuclear weapons. Because they mean peace between these big powers. And also your example on Japan was not true, just because Soviet Russia didn't have any navy, so they couldn't attack Japan because it's an island, and they were afraid of America. And just a few months before, Americans attacked with bombers Tokyo and killed 100,000 people, and Japanese didn't care. Just nuclear weapons stopped this. And we think that these are the reasons, just because you don't have any real benefits on your side, and we have the huge amount of human lives on our side, that it is true that we won this debate. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. Now we have a few questions for you. The first one being, don't you believe that military extremists, they are irrational, think that they are untouchables?
That those who are fighting think they are untouchable.
No, that those military extremists that we have mentioned, don't you think they themselves deem themselves untouchables?
Well, I don't think so, because I think everyone wants to stay alive. And when they are fighting for something, they put their life for something, they want the thing be alive. In this case, we are talking probably about some caliphate. And when you die for some caliphate with a nuclear weapon, there won't be any your caliphate.
Okay, thank you. But didn't the Second World War start because a man in Germany thought he was untouchable and he could conquer the entirety of Europe?
Well, the Second World War started because the tension between those countries were big, and some countries wanted to benefit from war. When Germany attacked Poland, they wanted more territory, so they attacked them and take more territory. With nuclear weapons, this cannot happen, because you know that your territory and the enemy's territory will be destroyed, so there is no real reason for war. But
do you still believe that it's true when we prove to you there was a war between Iraq and the United States, even the United States had nuclear weapons and Iraq was presumed to have them too?
Okay, they were present. We would like to hear your research from which you are sure that they have a nuclear weapon. We think that they didn't use a nuclear weapon, so they probably hadn't had a nuclear weapon. And also, when you have a nuclear weapon, the main reason to have a nuclear weapon is to make threats, as you said, because you want your enemies to know that you have a nuclear weapon, so they won't attack you. So probably when you have a nuclear weapon, you say this. And that's why there are so many threats in the world with nuclear weapons, because this is the reason to have a nuclear weapon.
Thank you. Next question. Al-Baghdadi said his primary goal was to avenge what America has done in Iraq. Do you still believe his main goal is not to avenge what America did in Iraq?
Well, not really, because they probably wanted from America to leave Middle East and to be free. But we know what happened. It didn't succeed, and everyone knows it. And we think that with nuclear weapon, it would be even worse for those terrorists. So they understand it, and they wouldn't do anything like that.
Next question. Don't you believe that there are some capable scientists on the black market capable of constructing a nuclear weapon, meaning that the governments wouldn't have to sell it to these terrorists, which for the record we ever said?
Totally not, because I think there is no scientist who would make a nuclear weapon for Islamistic State. And also I think that it is Pakistan had their development of nuclear weapons for 10 or more years. And it was a big country, not really rich, but they had a lot of money from it. And there are no terrorist organizations with enough money to do this.
Okay, thank you.
Honorable panel, in my speech you will see 4 main points, but before that let's have a look big strategic mistake on their side of the house and contradictions there. They are trying to say that in a First World War, there was some trading or something like that. So after that, there was a World War II, and they never proved us, even though they said that those people are rational, and then they actually say that those people were trading with each other and they started a war. This is pretty much what we're saying that can happen anyways with those people because they are not thinking rationally. Two main points in my speech: the risk and rogue nations argument. Let's have a look at the risk one. So, in our first argument, we have like 4 main points. Firstly, we are saying that there is a huge risk of war because since March there was 3 nuclear tests, and that's this year. In all Cold War, it was 44 years. There was 21 of them. So we see some increase, and this is so important because we are telling you that we have populists like Modi, who actually placed his nuclear weapons to borders with Pakistan, and he told us that he will use them if they will be threatened. And actually, we see that he is able to do that. So we see the real threat, and we're saying that those nuclear weapons will be here for hundreds of years, and this is a high probability that this will happen because there is an increase of populism, and we proved you that they are not thinking rationally because they are trying to make people live in fear. They are trying to say that national security is everything we need, and we actually say that by this we take this point because we prove to you that they are taking care only about the national security, and they themselves say they will use those nuclear weapons if they will be threatened. So we see that this is a real threat posed in today's world. Secondly, they just told us that they have no right to do so because they have 3 other people. As Alex already proved to you, the cabinet which will have to prove this is chosen by this person. So it is not that hard because Trump elected his cabinet, which will right now have to prove this. They will have to obey right now for his decision. So we actually believe that this is no real, this is not stance anymore because we proved to you that they choose these people. Secondly, they told us that we have peace, and they did compare it with peace. But like we proved to you 3 reasons why the peace is not here because of the nuclear weapons. We proved to you firstly that we have those organizations like United Nations which provide us. But secondly, really important point, that it is not effective, it is not beneficial for them to fight, for example, for resources or something like that, because the global market right now is more beneficial for them, and it wasn't like that in the past. And we're saying that this is the real reason why they don't fight, because when they were fighting for some resources or something like that, they don't have the incentive to do so right now. It is not about nuclear weapons. Lastly, we sang the point with democratization, because actually people voting those politicians based on that. So secondly, even if that does not stand right now, we still take this point because we prove to you the threat by terrorist organizations. Why is that so important? They only told us they have no incentive to do so because they want to conquer something. No, they actually don't want to do so. They just want to spread their ideology, and they want to fight the West. As we proved to you, they didn't want to conquer America, the Paris, France, the Belgium. No, those terrorist attacks are not because of the land, because they want to conquer the land. It is because they're fighting for the ideology, and this does not have to do anything with that. If they will have nuclear weapons, as they will probably have, as we proved to you, they will use them to fight as much as they can for the ideology. They never tackled with that. This is so important for this on our side of the house. They just told us we don't have any evidence. We proved to you that the Bulgarian magnate Ivanov told that he has some meeting with Osama bin Laden about this topic. And this is so crucial because they had some meeting about that. Secondly, the argument about rogue nations, they basically dropped that in their second speech. We taught you that those rogue nations can threaten other country in negotiations. They can oppress their citizens. They are legitimizing themselves. And on our side of the house, we have better negotiation through through the smart powers. Also, really important argument about geopolitics. They never tackled with that. With their second speech, they dropped that, and we think that because of that, we won that argument, and also we won our first argument. So I'm so proud to stand by the proposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, affirmation comes here trying to intimidate you that someone could nuke this Senate. And I personally believe that it's magnificent that we debate this motion and that they bring this out, because it helps all of us to know that nuclear weapons can be horrific, and so that we fear them, so that we have this respect, and thus they are effective. That's the reason why they work, and that's the great thing. That's the great thing that we debate this, that we realize this, and that they bring actually this cool intro, because it also serves us as a good outro. So I'll go through some of the main clashes. I'll try to show you which were significant and why they fall on our side. So what was probably the most important thing for this debate was the whole MAD thing, like mass assured destruction, like whether or not are people rational enough to not to use nuclear weapons, right? So we could sort this to two sub-points. Like firstly, the leaders, which is more important, the most important one. Are the leaders of the countries which actually acquired nuclear weapons rational enough to not to use them? And what was brought us in A1 was like statements about populists, saying threats, like trying to intimidate other countries that they could actually use a nuclear weapon about them. And that's as we explained to you, that's the reason why they have these nuclear weapons. So that they can say threats, so that they can intimidate other countries, but so they also don't have any incentive to use them. And that's what we are telling you throughout this motion. The only incentive would be, of course, defense, but they would have no reason to like voluntarily destroy their country, to, if they are populists, to lose votes of their voters because they are dependent on them. And every little kid knows that nuclear weapons are bad and nuking out the world would be bad. And then there was a second important subpoint which partly falls under this MAD logic, whether or not terrorists would use it. And it seems logical, right? We hate terrorists, and so that we think that, yeah, they would be enough irrational to do this. But we were trying to put some logic in this. We were showing you throughout this debate that terrorists would need to have two things to actually like use nuclear weapons. They would have to have the capability and the incentive. And we have shown you that they have neither. Firstly, about the capability. They would have to acquire these weapons somehow, so probably black market, which was brought by the side of affirmation. But we showed you that that's not really likely, because everybody worries about nuclear weapons, so nobody would sell them. But even if we were bringing you examples of international companies, for example, which are protecting nuclear weapons so that they don't get out of hands. And secondly, we were also explaining you why terrorists have no incentive to do this, because they have their goals as well. They are trying to, by like little things, of course, saying hyperbolically, like 9/11. These were things that they were trying to demonstrate power, but they would not try to demonstrate power, so that they would they would have no chance of having their own land. For as we explained to you, and for an example, Islamic State wants to have a state. They want to have their caliphate, and that's why they wouldn't do this. They would have no incentive. They have their goals they want to achieve as well. So if we think about these two worlds, then their world has only conventional weapons, right? So there applies no MAD, as we have shown you throughout this debate. So that's why we would have same wars we have had till now, like since the invention of nuclear weapons. So those same proxy wars and everything, it's not exclusive for neither of the sides. So this thing stays the same. But they had a claim that trade would actually stop. They would prevent any World War III or anything like this. But we showed you that this didn't work in the past. Like there was international trade and unions before World War II, before World War I, and it never worked. And also as Adam pointed pointed out, land is still more valuable than trade, and if they could acquire land easily, then countries would do that. So the trade thing doesn't apply as well. So in their world, War III is very likely, and that's what we fear of, and that's what we prevented with nuclear weapons. Also, they have brought in their first speech something about bad leaders harming their own people. This is not exclusive for neither of the sides, as we have shown you in N1, and which was not reacted to. Bad leaders harming their own people are here on both of the sides. And so what I want to leave you with is a quote from Omar Bradley, the US senior officer. The only way to win an atomic war is to make certain it never starts. And I am sure we persuaded you throughout this debate that we are certain that the nuclear war never starts, so we are the winners. Thank you.